You'll just give us 1 minute. All right. All right. I believe we are live. Hang tight. Yep, we're good to go.
Good to go. All right.
Yep. So I'm going to unpause. Yes, this, and we will go ahead and get started.
All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first public listening session of the Governor's Redistricting Advisory Commission. I want to thank everyone who has joined us this afternoon, as well as my fellow commission members. We have an additional virtual listening session for everyone's knowledge that is scheduled so far for November 18th, and then another on December 5th. You should know as well that we'd like to get 2 more done in the first 2 weeks of December. Now, after that, I anticipate that we'll get together to review the written testimony and take up the question of whether we put maps forward for feedback and comment from the public. I appreciate my colleagues' patience as staff work together to put a schedule in place. Now, we have a Zoom waiting room full of Marylanders to provide us with their thoughts on mid-cycle redistricting in Maryland's current map. And I want to reiterate that our primary purpose at this stage is to receive feedback from Marylanders in an open and transparent manner. Today's verbal testimony, so that you know, must be no longer than 3 minutes, and screen sharing is not an option. With that, I'll turn it over to Deputy Secretary Kristen Fleckenstein to answer a few questions. I know that our Senate President Ferguson had a few questions at our organizational meeting, and she's going to provide some additional feedback before the testimony begins. So kicking it off to you, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Just to get started, we wanted to touch base on a couple of quick housekeeping items and also answer a few questions that were raised at the last meeting. Mr. President, during the last census presentation at our first meeting, we used the final original census figure for total population and congressional district counts. However, the certified figures are those that were finalized after prisoner reallocation, and those are the ones that should have been used. As you may recall, Maryland must take the final figures and then reallocate those incarcerated in Maryland facilities and put them back to their last known home address. With that, the number that we should be using as our final figures from the census for the total population is 6,175,403, which would make the ideal congressional district size 771,925. Again, those are the figures that should be used. Also, as to your question, Mr. President, as to the precinct impact, we did review that and look into that, and we did confirm that precincts would indeed need to be redrawn should congressional districts change prior to the 2026 election cycle. This would be done by the local boards of elections. Also, Mr. President, you also asked about the Attorney General's involvement in the process. Their office will be providing support to the Department of Legislative Services regarding the redistricting process. That is the information I have at this time. With that, we are happy to assist with other questions should they arise. And if not, I'm going to move forward into some housekeeping items as we get started on the public testimony. All right, we will go ahead and start then. Well, tonight's session will start momentarily, but first though, we have to share some details on how the meeting's going to be run. Speakers should ensure that their names are listed properly in the attendee list. If not, please change it to reflect the correct name that you used to register. Otherwise, we may not be able to find you in the list that we have. Each speaker will be elevated from an attendee to a role of panelist in order to provide your testimony. We will say your name and indicate that we are moving you to a live panelist role when your time comes to speak. Once that happens, you're going to see a pop-up on your screen that you accept. The box will indicate the host would like to promote you to become a panelist. When that box appears on your screen, please click Join as Panelist. There might be a slight lag until you're ready to go live, but you will be joined as a panelist and be able to testify at that time. Be sure when you are elevated to a panelist that you unmute your microphone, but it's up to you as to whether or not you want to turn on your camera. If you're having technical difficulties, we will move to the next speaker, but we'll return to you when that speaker is over to see if you're ready to go. If not, unfortunately, we will have to skip your turn, but you're welcome to sign up to provide testimony at a future meeting, and we'll take you in the beginning of that session. When your 3 minutes is up, you will be moved back to the attendee role. Even if you're still speaking, we're going to have to move you back. This will enable us to hear from more attendees. There will be a timer up in your right-hand corner of your screen. It should also be on the screen for either myself or Andrew Wilson, who will be facilitating this evening's meeting. When you see that start to come down to 3 minutes, please know that we will move you back to the panelists. Move you back to the attendee section when that is finished and when that alarm goes off. If you're not finished with your testimony, please feel free to email it to grac@maryland.gov. One thing of note is that we have had an overwhelming response to this meeting, which is wonderful, but unfortunately it means that we're likely not going to get to everyone who registered to speak. I believe we had almost 100 individuals indicate that they would like to speak during this evening's meeting, but we're probably only going to have time, due to the amount of time allocated for this meeting, for about 30 to 40 speakers. If you are registered to provide testimony tonight but are not called, we ask that you register for either the meeting on November 18th, on December 5th. The November 18th link is live on the website. The December 5th meeting will be made live on Monday. And we will do our best to call your names at the beginning of that meeting prior to moving on to testimony of those who have registered after tonight's meeting. You may also submit your testimony via email. Please remember that this is a listening session and is meant to serve as the Commission's way to hear your thoughts and concerns. However, any aggressive or inappropriate behavior or foul language will result in an immediate removal from this meeting. Once you are moved back, you are still welcome to observe the remainder of the meeting. You may see a spinning wheel while you're being moved back from panelist to attendee, but please know that you are going to be able to see it live as soon as that lag ends. Please do not click any buttons or you probably will be removed from the meeting. You will be just able to watch from then on out. It is just simply the screens changing. The Commission will be focused on listening to our speakers, so the chat and raised hands features for this meeting have been disabled. Finally, a recording of the proceedings will be posted to the Redistricting website at redistricting.maryland.com on Monday. Thank you so much. And with that, we're going to begin our public testimony. Our first speaker this evening is going to be, let me look at my list. Andrew, if you can take that, that would be most helpful.
Spencer Dixon, I am sending you the invite now to become a panelist. Please accept and unmute your microphone. Once you show up on our screen, your 3-minute timer will start.
My name is Spencer Dixon, and I'm an Anne Arundel County resident providing testimony as an individual in my personal capacity. We did not need to be here. In 2021, the then democratically controlled House passed the For the People Act, sponsored by former Congressman John Sarbanes. The bill included a provision to end partisan gerrymandering nationwide. Unfortunately, the bill did not receive the requisite GOP support in the Senate to become law. Instead, we find ourselves in an arms race for House seats started by President Trump's instigation of Texas. California responded, as have other GOP states, and others may continue. The duty of this commission is to ensure representative and fair congressional maps. Given the inroads the GOP has made to try to rig the election so they win no matter what, ensuring representative and fair congressional maps may require Maryland to redistrict in order to ensure the will of the American people at large is heard. As some state leaders have wisely stated, mid-decade redistricting in our state is not without risk. If you share the goals that I have to ensure a level playing field nationally, engaging in this exercise could backfire. Back in 2022, a Maryland judge struck down the MGA's initially passed map, relying on novel state constitutional theories. Thankfully, the MGA had an opportunity to redraw the map, but a future court could more directly intervene, as just happened in Utah. The other major risk is an action in Maryland could cause more GOP-controlled states to redistrict. With more opportunities for them to do so compared to Democratic-controlled states, unnecessarily triggering them would not be in the strategic interest of Democrats looking to level the playing field. I think that the choices in the public dialogue on this issue in our state are too limited between taking an arguably risky action and taking no action at all. Instead, I respectfully encourage the GRAC to recommend the MGA take the following action. Just like our bold constitutional response in 23 and 4 to the reproductive health emergency triggered by the disastrous Dobbs decision, I encourage the MGA to pass a proposed constitutional amendment expressly giving our elected branches the authority to draw congressional maps, notwithstanding any other provision of the Maryland Constitution, which would prevent rulings like the one from 2022. The amendment would then need to be ratified by Maryland voters in the 26th general election, and I'm confident they would. To my second point on retaliation, this move would empower Maryland to serve as a true deterrent to additional GOP-controlled states from redistricting. Without the threat of actually being able to follow through with redistricting, no real deterrent exists today. This recommendation would likely take redistricting off the table for the 26th election, and that's okay. Should Maryland decide in 27 that it must redistrict given the national redistricting landscape at the time, it will be fully empowered to do so. I hope my proposal can bridge the divide between the binary choice currently under discussion. Thank you for your work on this commission.
All right, our next speaker is Sabrina Williams. Sabrina, you're being moved to a panelist. Please make sure to accept and turn on your microphone.
Excellent. My name is Sabrina Williams, and I'm a constituent from Frederick, Maryland. Thank you to the Commission for the opportunity to speak today. Congressional redistricting is one of the most consequential actions we can take as a state, and Maryland now finds itself in a moment where thoughtful, strategic redistricting is not only wise, it is absolutely necessary. In recent weeks, we've watched states like Texas and other Republican-controlled legislatures aggressively redraw their maps mid-cycle at the behest of Donald Trump, often in ways that dilute hard-fought minority representation and undermine the democratic process. Republicans change the rules, and when the rules change, Maryland cannot pretend we're still playing the old game. Failing to respond strategically doesn't make us noble, it makes us vulnerable. And frankly, it makes us look unprepared, naive, and even foolish in the face of coordinated efforts to destroy American democracy. We have an opportunity to counter Republican attempts to suppress votes, particularly minority votes. Please, let's not squander it. Thank you for your work and for your commitment to this process.
Right.
Thank you.
And I'm promoting the next on our list, Robin Ficker. I'm sending you a panelist invite now. Okay. You can go ahead, Mr. Ficker.
You'll need to unmute, sir.
Mr. Ficker, you're still muted on our screen.
Is okay. All right. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Robin Ficker. I'm a candidate for Congress in Maryland's 6th district, which includes Garrett, Allegheny, Washington, all of Frederick, and much of Montgomery County. Montgomery County is about 30% of the district. I just want to make sure that this panel was composed for the proper reason. I know that Governor Moore and his political advisor, April Delaney, said, we want to set up a committee so we can be like Texas. I thought that the reason they said that was that Texas has no income tax, no state income tax, and Governor Moore and April Delaney were thinking of maybe repealing Maryland's income tax. Then I realized, no, it has to do with redistricting. Well, I'll speak to that matter. There's a lot of pressure now from the constituents in Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington County, which is being imposed by legislators in West Virginia, Virginia, and Pennsylvania to leave Maryland and join those states because the tail on the dog, which is Garrett, Allegheny, and Washington, are being left out of major decisions and they feel shortchanged. I also feel that there's pressure from Congresswoman Delaney to redraw the district so that it zips down to Montgomery County and includes her house. She doesn't live in the district. So she'd rather have the district come to her than her go to the district. And I don't think that's a good reason to redraw District 6. I think that there's only two contestable congressional districts in Maryland as a practical matter. District 1, the Eastern Shore, and Congressional District 6, where I live and where April Delaney is the recumbent. I think that there's going to be a lot of focus on District 1, but I'm very worried about changes being made in District 6 too. While you're sweeping out the room, why not also clean out District 6 by switching 15 to 20 precincts where April Delaney did poorly and bringing in some where she didn't do, bringing in some where she could do better. So please, if you're going to change District 6, include part of.
All right, we have now moved Wendy Engel Murphy to a panelist position. Wendy, please be sure to turn to unmute.
Hi. I think the first two people who spoke pretty much said everything I wanted to say. I think it's important that we do whatever we can to ensure that that this country does not turn into an autocracy. And I think for that, we need to look at redistricting because other states are. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Jocelyn Long, I'm sending you an invite to become a panelist now. Please accept and unmute.
Good evening. My name is Jocelyn Long, and I'm a resident of PG County. I believe that we need to continue to fight for the balance of power in this country, and so I am for redistricting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next panelist is James Wass. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your last name. Please be sure to unmute.
James Wass is up.
Yes.
Thank you very much. James Wass from Prince George's County, and gerrymandering or redistricting for political purposes is 214 years old and acknowledged by the U.S. Supreme Court as the right of the state legislators. So our first foray of that was 14 years ago, where we reduced it down to 7 and 1. Our most recent map made more modest corrections 5 years ago. In both cases, I would hope that we would honor Article 3, Section 4 of our Constitution, our state constitution. Each legislative district shall consist of adjoining territory, good, be compact in form, and of substantially equal population. Due regard, a separate sentence having equal import, shall be given to natural boundaries and the boundaries of political subdivisions. The Maryland Constitution does not ask us what would Texas do. It doesn't ask us what would California do. The former was acting in part on court order. The latter properly amended, though oddly, they properly amended their constitution. I live in Prince George's County, as I said, where our current map is tight, coherent, respecting of geographic and political boundaries. Can we do that for all of the other districts, please? Again, Article 3, Section 4 guides us. I hope that this commission and the legislature will be guided by those provisions. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Ann Rutherford, I'm upgrading you to a panelist now. Please accept and unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I've never done this before, and I'm looking at a screen that just has my name, so I hope that you can hear me.
We can.
Oh, good. Okay. I was very dismayed to hear that they wanted to redistrict since it was such a fight, and we know that this is a democratically controlled state, so they focused everything to make it so that the Democrats would be elected in every place except they couldn't redistrict out Andy Harris. If you remember, if you're old enough to remember, we had 4 and 4 in this state. If you look at the counties, there are Republican counties that are not being represented, people who voted Republican because the state, when you gerrymander the districts, even though they're better, they're still gerrymandered to favor the Democrats, and including major populations. When you take the Eastern Shore and the western part of Maryland and make it so that you've looped in major rural or urban centers into what was a very solid Republican district, because that's the way they live out there. I don't think it's fair to keep these people to be misrepresented in Congress because you've looped in all these cities that don't belong in a rural atmosphere. So I do not favor gerrymandering or redistricting again, so that you can try to squeeze out Andy Harris as the last bastion of republicanism that we have represented in this state. We do still have Republicans, and they still vote conservatively in this state. So it's unfair to keep them out. And so I am against redistricting again. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Matt Morgan.
Matt, before you start, Kristen, can you turn your timer off?
Yes.
Okay. Matt, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Good to see you guys. Unfortunately, it's for bad circumstances of this. So I did watch your organizational meeting. I thought it was fascinating when Mayor Morris asked the question is, what problem is this commission trying to solve? And it looked like everyone had deer in the headlights. We know what problem this commission is set up to solve. It's set up to solve to get rid of Andy Harris over on the Eastern Shore. And I feel that it's just wrong to politically disenfranchise an entire region of the state. Now, I heard a couple speakers before me talk about authoritism and totalitarianism. Nothing's more totalitarian than a show commission set up with a predetermined outcome. If this commission goes forward with redistricting, taking out, and this isn't gerrymandered, this is eliminating the Republicans' voice throughout the state, it would be a gross misuse of power. It also would be extremely stupid. 2 days ago, we got news that the state is facing a $1.4 billion deficit again. This is after a historically high tax increase this last session. The federal government accounts for $150 billion of economic activity in the state of Maryland. Is it really smart to have the entire congressional delegation in the minority party? Because I serve in the minority party in Annapolis, and I can tell you it's a very humbling experience. I sometimes dream of a day that some of my colleagues on this call can experience it. Now, I know it looks like you guys want to respond, and that's not the correct form for that. But, I keep hearing all this talk about Texas and the redistricting in Texas. So let's talk about that a little bit, because there's some facts that get glossed over all the time. No one ever talks about the Texas redistricting case was because of a successful lawsuit challenging their 2022 maps. Texas had the obligation to redistrict. Also, Texas got the short end of the stick under fraudulent 2020 census numbers. It's readily available on an audit of the census that they oversampled blue areas and undersampled red areas, causing Texas to lose 2 seats, causing Florida to lose a couple seats. But that never gets mentioned. I do know that I think this is a sham of a deal to go through redistricting at this point. And every person that's an elected official on this call took the same oath of office I did. And you took an oath to defend.
All right. Amy Lee, I am sending you a promote to panelist link now. Please unmute when you come onto our screens. Okay, I'll give a few more seconds for Amy before moving on to the next. Okay. It says on my screen that Amy declined to be promoted to a panelist. So one moment while I look for the next.
All right, then our next speaker is Brandon Tucker. And then I am promoting you to a panelist position. Please accept and unmute.
Good afternoon. My name is Brandon Tucker. I am the Senior Director of Policy and Government Affairs at Color of Change, one of the nation's largest racial justice organizations. I'm here on behalf of thousands of Color of Change members in the state of Maryland. As an advocate for fairness, representation, racial justice, courage, and common sense, Color of Change is in strong support of redistricting. What is at stake is not in question. The Trump administration openly encouraged a strategy to maintain power in 2026. Republican-led states answered that call. They redrew maps to carve out voters of color, attempting to rig the midterms, evade accountability, and they banked on a familiar, well-founded assumption that their opponents would gasp in disbelief, complain about the audacity, and do nothing. Fortunately, not everyone was willing to sit back and get played. We watched California pass Prop 50, the Election Rigging Response Act, to cancel out Texas. We watched Virginia move. The question now is, what will Maryland do? If Maryland does nothing, it's not Maryland staying above the fray or out of the way. It's not Maryland being neutral. It is acceptance of the status quo. I urge this commission to move forward, redraw the maps. So especially Black voters in other communities long targeted by manipulation are heard fully, fairly, and accurately in 2026. Maryland cannot stand idly by while our nation's democracy gets toyed with by people who don't believe rules apply to them. We've expressed shock and outrage long enough as norms crumble and rules are disregarded in real time. The stakes are too high and the harm to our communities is too real. This is the moment to act with clarity and courage, in full understanding that protecting democracy sometimes requires fighting fire with fire. Democracy must mean more than avoiding discomfort at the expense of representation. I thank this commission for its time, its attention, and I urge this commission to redistrict. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Justin Gallucci, I'm sending you an invitation to become a panelist. You're good to go, Justin.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody, or good evening. My name is Justin Gallucci. I'm here as a constituent of Anne Arundel County, and I'm here defending Maryland's constitutional representation. So I just want to be clear. As it stands, Maryland's current district map is one of the most surgically engineered partisan gerrymanders in the United States. And that's not an opinion, it's not rhetoric, it's data. It's data upheld by national watchdogs, independent analysts, university research centers, and multiple federal court filings. So let's be real, right? Maryland is not a 7-to-1 state. We have 29% Republican, 47% Democrat, and unaffiliated independent is 23%. But among the independents, which is the fastest growing bloc in Maryland, voter skews towards center right on tax, crime, business regulation, and education and energy policy. So if you really wanted to look at it fairly, it'd be more like a 5-3 state or a 4-4 state. It also is a violation of RUCO versus common law, right? Because they said they would not police partisan gerrymandering, but that we needed to be compact, geographically logical, and respect natural communities. These districts go across counties with no shared economy, no shared identity, no shared infrastructure. It fractures conservative leading regions and fuses unrelated ones purely to dilute opposition votes. That is what we call political engineering. So if it was done correctly, you'd have 2 strong Republican districts, 1 lean right competitive district, 1 true swing state, and 4 Democratic districts. But this isn't just a political problem, it's a civil rights problem. The map doesn't just disenfranchise conservatives, it's thousands of Black, Hispanic, and immigrant conservatives that are the invisible minority within the minority. These Marylanders exist, they vote, they organize, they build business, they raise families, and they are silenced every time the districts do this, and they craft to eliminate ideological diversity within minority communities. And then finally, the cost, right? If this map passes, it's going to court, it's going to be challenged, it will probably be overturned, and who ends up paying it but the taxpayer? And we are in a $1.5 billion deficit already. So I guess Maryland deserves maps that reflect real communities, our real voters, and our real political landscape, not a map built to satisfy Washington, not a map crafted to silent dissent, or a map designed to lock one party into perpetual power. If we want fairness, the data is clear. If we want representation, the numbers are clear. If we want democracy, the path is clear. A fair map creates more conservative representation. An unfair map creates political domination, and the people of Maryland can tell the difference. Thank you.
Next, we have Delegate Ryan Naraki. Please be sure to unmute.
Hey there, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. First of all, it's good to see everyone. Thank you for taking the time tonight to be here. There's just a couple things that I want to talk about in this process. First of all, we've heard a lot of people discuss fairness. Well, I think when we're talking about fairness, the process in and of itself in this commission needs to be fair, for the process to be fair. I had a meeting the other night with some farmers in Baltimore County. They were pointing out to me that they, even in Baltimore County, still don't have broadband access. right? So we are at the core, right from the start, disenfranchising folks from being able to participate in a process when the only way to do so is via a Zoom meeting. That's Baltimore County. That's not talking about Garrett County, Somerset County, places like that we know have many challenges with those kinds of access. So I think at its core, to only have a Zoom option, as far as I can tell, the next meeting is virtual as well, is at its core disenfranchising people right from the start. So I think going forward, I would hope that there will be an option for folks to present testimony in person. And I would hope that the commission would also get out to multiple jurisdictions around the state to hear perspectives from around the state. You know, we had a court decision in 2022, which everyone is well aware of here. And one of the things that it's explicitly said, now the federal government may say that you can do partisan gerrymandering, but the decision in Maryland said that you can't. And we have the maps that I've seen proposed to go down the same pathway that was struck down in 2022. They don't respect political boundaries. They don't respect the Chesapeake Bay and other natural boundaries. And they don't respect partisan and ideological boundaries. So for all those reasons, I think that this entire process is rigged from the start. We're not looking to incorporate folks that are in rural communities, folks that are in minority communities that don't have broadband access, things like that. The entire process is rigged. And if we're starting at that, from that point, how can we believe that any of this is about fairness when we're not even trying to be fair with who we're allowing to participate in this hearing in and of itself? Thank you very much.
All right, the next on our list is Jake Taylor. I'm sending you the panelist invite now.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jake Taylor, and I currently serve as Bel Air Town Commissioner, where I've represented my community, the town of Bel Air, for the past 2 years. Bel Air is both a small town and the seat of Harford County. Like most local jurisdictions, we care deeply about the path that will be taken by Annapolis on this issue and many others. And that's why I rise today to speak in firm opposition against any attempt to redraw Maryland's congressional districts out of the proper cycle of the decennial census. While the pretense of this move might be fairness, it's clear that the outcome desired by its progenitors is for partisan gain. Maryland's partisan makeup is certainly decidedly Democratic, but it's not 8-0, and frankly, it's not even 7-1. A little over half of Marylanders are registered Democrats, but Republicans and unaffiliated voters roughly split the remaining half to make up 1/4 each. A map that reflected Maryland's partisan makeup more accurately might see 5 Democratic favorite seats, 2 Republican favorite seats, and 1 toss-up seat. But regardless of those figures, and they are figures that I firmly believe ought to be returned to at the proper time in 2030, now is not the time to proceed with redistricting in the state of Maryland, particularly not under such partisan auspices. It has been rightly stated that this process is and ought to be a lengthy one, with almost no chance of being completed in time for the General Assembly to enact and the boards of elections to implement any proposed map, provided, of course, that this commission gives the issue the deliberate thought and thorough review that it deserves. The governor has lamented the so-called rush process that created the current maps. That, as we all remember, was a result of the successful legal challenge to a map that would have likely created an 8-0 Democrat delegation to Washington. If this commission moves forward now on this timeline, there is no doubt that it would be even more rushed than in the 2022 process, likely causing even more delays and administrative burdens than on our local boards of elections experienced in 2022. Simply put, moving forward with redistricting at this time would be wrong. It would be wrong practically, it would be wrong legally, and it would be wrong morally. Marylanders deserve to have a fair shot at electing leaders who represent them and their values, and we deserve to have fair maps in order to accomplish that. This commission threatens to be a step backwards on that cause, and I would urge you against undoing the progress Maryland has made on this issue in the last 10 years. If you do decide to move forward with this ill-advised attempt, I would ask of you 2 things. Do not split Harford County arbitrarily in half along our I-95 corridor, and do not attempt us to unite with parts of the state that do not represent our communities of interest and our values. Keep us with the Eastern Shore, or unite us again with Northern and Eastern Baltimore County, as we were in the 90s when we were represented by Congressman Ehrlich. Above all, I urge you to look at this state holistically, remembering that you, as commissioners, are tasked with representing every last inch of it, and that you are responsible for defending the rights of every Marylanders, from our largest cities to our smallest towns. If you remember this as you do your work, you will no doubt reject these attempts to further imbalance Maryland's congressional maps. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Barbara Creamer. Please be sure to unmute.
Hello, my name is Barbara Osborne Kramer. Am I coming through? I don't
Yes.
see.
Yes.
Okay, I don't know why my video is not coming through, but my old friends, Attorney General Frosch and Senator Ferguson, know what I look like. In any case, I am a Democrat. I'm from Harford County. I was the first woman elected to the Harford County Council. I've been elected to the Democratic Central Committee from Harford County to the State Democratic Central Committee 7 times. I represented the 1st Congressional District to the Democratic National Convention. And then 2 years later, I ran for Congress in the Democratic primary in the 1st Congressional District. I urge you not to move forward with redistricting at this time. We have worked hard under a Republican-drawn map within Harford County to get representation in the county council. When I served on the county council in 1978 to 1982, I served with 5 other Democrats, and we had a Democratic county executive. But we have had to fight to get 2 members who are Democrats on the present county council. In the present configuration of the 1st Congressional District, Harford County is unified, and it is contiguous with the Eastern Shore. In fact, I drive up Route 40, across and down Route 213 every week to go to classes at Washington College, where I graduated from years ago. So it's a unified and compact district, as compact as it can be, with a more rural nature than our more densely populated neighbors in Maryland. We have been working very hard in the Democratic Party in Harford County to increase our performance. We had a 78% turnout in the last election. We haven't been unified that long. It used to be that the Route 40 corridor where I live was represented by Dutch Ruppersberger. So personally, it's an outrage to be represented by Andy Harris at this time. But we are working very hard in Harford County to increase our base of volunteers, increase our activism. We recently we have had 2 very strong No Kings demonstrations, and we have a lot of small groups working together as a coalition that are giving places for people to bring their ire. I have a friend who's a 91-year-old artist in Harford County. When I went to one of her showings of paintings yesterday, not yesterday, but recently, she was so upset. She said, "Do something about Trump." She said, "My doctor told me I have to stop because it's affecting my health. It's affecting health for all of us."
Next on our list is Donna Zupancic. Donna, you can go ahead.
Hi, my name is Donna Zupancic, and I'm calling as an individual. I'm against redistricting. We've already done this. We went through all this. I listened to all these things back in 2022. Everybody wants their own little area to be represented by who they want it to. And I think we have more important things to have issue of than redistricting. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
All right. Our next panelist is Jacinta Bottoms Spencer. Please be sure to unmute.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this forum. And thank you for your public service, gentlemen and ladies. I can't see any ladies on the camera right now, but I want to thank you for your service. My name is Jacinta Bottoms Spencer, and I am a God-fearing, concerned citizen of Maryland who wants fairness and transparency in elections. I'm just going to state some facts as I know them to be. Maryland has long been considered to be the most gerrymandered state in the country, also known as a blue state. Gerrymandering, Maryland has long been done as a way to disproportionately favor the Democratic Party in congressional elections. The Maryland state constitution requires that districts are to be compact and contiguous. Fundamentally, gerrymandering is wrong. And I am going to be upgraded enough to say that both parties have been guilty of gerrymandering tactics for decades. These unfair drawing of jurisdictions only hurts the voters, and some party has to begin the process of fairness. Redistricting is supposed to be done every 10 years based on census data of the population of the state, country. Gerrymandering is not democracy at its best. It's politicians picking the voters. And we know that the voters are supposed to choose their politicians. I want to thank you again for your service and your time, and God bless you.
Thank you.
All right, Edward Fishman is up next, sending you the panelist link now. You can go ahead, Edward.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. I'm Edward Fisher, and I want to be transparent about my partisan biases. I'm a member of the Montgomery County Democratic Central Committee, but I'm testifying in my individual capacity. I'm no fan of partisan redistricting. Republicans reasonably complain the current map largely silences their voices in some parts of the state, but it has the opposite effect in the first district. I have spoken about the issue over the years with members of the General Assembly in the past, particularly over the bill first pushed by then Senator Raskin to adopt nonpartisan redistricting only if a GOP-controlled state joined a compact. I do believe in being a model, and it's in that spirit that I urge the legislature to act in this instance. We are at a moment of crisis, and we will not fix this until and unless states like Maryland send a strong message that we will not sit by as extreme gerrymandering happens elsewhere. That is how we will move Republicans nationally to join a move to independent redistricting. Many understandably want to see a new House majority in 2027 to resist the unlawful and extreme impulses of the current administration. But I'm also looking towards 2029, when I hope a Democratic president may work unobstructed with a democratically controlled Congress to restore rule of law and able to enact crucial reforms like those in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. If the concern today is about courts overthrowing a legislative enactment, let's do what California did and put a constitutional change to the people next year so that we have this change securely in place for the following 2 cycles. I had challenged delegates over the map initially passed a few years ago, warning that Maryland and New York Democrats were adopting maps that would be struck down by state courts. And we could have adopted an 8 Democratic representative map that looked perfectly well and met the requirements of contiguity and compactness. And maybe that the horse is out of the barn on that one, that the litigation risk is high, but I'm also reticent to follow the legal advice of those who didn't heed the warnings about the older map. So I urge you to take some action on this. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is David Hitchcock. Please unmute.
Hello. Yes. I am coming before you today just on behalf of the Maryland Young Republicans. And I would just like to say that I think, regardless of what party you're in, just the kind of gerrymandering, redistricting that some would be seeking to promote today is extremely undemocratic, because our country has a very proud tradition of democracy. But if you take the idea of multiple parties away and you have one party just control everything, regardless of how much support it actually has, you know, that essentially a one-party state, otherwise known as a dictatorship. And it's like, if you essentially, allow the tyranny of the majority to rule, then that effectively means that, if you're complaining about someone else redistricting, then you're no better. Because if you practice, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, then the whole world would become blind and toothless. And I have lived in Montgomery County, Maryland, my entire life. And I just feel that we are to have a truly democratic society. We should just allow, all voices to be represented and let the democratic process play out if we're to have a truly representative society. And, if you value democracy at all, then you can't let your hearts just be hardened to democratic values just because you feel that you can, benefit your own party politically by doing so. Because people who value democracy, are not going to be in favor of this kind of redistricting. The only people who would be supporting it are the kind of people who just, want to consolidate their own power and deny people just the proper representation that their votes deserve. And, people know, how gerrymandered Maryland is, and that speaks for itself. And if you value democracy and giving everyone a voice, then you cannot go forward with this kind of redistricting. Thank you.
Next up is Hadley Anthony. Just sent you the panelist link.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Yep.
Fantastic. My name is Hadley Anthony. I am speaking on behalf of myself, and I am a proud resident of the 46th Legislative District here in Baltimore. I just wanted to start off because there's been a lot of, intense passion here. I want to give something nice and say I appreciate Senator Ferguson, your commitment on legislation in this upcoming session to prohibit 287G. I think that's very important, and I appreciate that as your constituent. But moving on to redistricting here in the state of Maryland, look, we are at a moment where it's not just Texas, but it's North Carolina and Missouri, and other states are moving ahead. Those three I mentioned have already changed the rules and changed their maps to consolidate power there. And this disenfranchises not just the residents of those states, but here in Maryland as well, because we are the United States of America, and such as much we have to stand up in this moment and move forward with this redistricting to make sure that we have fair representation, not just here in the state, but more broadly at the federal level. And I respect the arguments that have come forward about legal hurdles and things of that nature. But the reality is, I have faith in our Attorney General and our governor to know how to overcome any potential hurdles that may arise from any redistricting. And so all I do is urge that we move forward with this redistricting so we can have fairness and a level playing field when other states have already moved forward. I'm so grateful states like California and Virginia have shown that courage to stand up. And I want to make one other point because I heard about, unfair representation. Right now, the Supreme Court is deliberating on overturning the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And that will decimate fair representation all across this country. And so we are not just looking at this moment right now, but anticipating what is further down the line in the likely event that it is further restricted or completely overturned by the Supreme Court. And so I want that to be in the back of your minds as you think about and proceed forward with redistricting. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your time.
Our next speaker is Lauren Arakan. Lauren, be sure to unmute.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate you guys listening to us today. I've heard a lot of interesting stuff so far. I'm disappointed. I'm really disappointed. I think everyone on this call knows what this is really about and that this is probably going to be fruitless. We've already been to court more than once over maps, issues with our maps, gerrymandering. We're known nationally as a state that is one of the most partisan gerrymandered states in the nation. I don't think that anybody on this call, not Democrats, not Republicans, not independents, wants us to have that banner. I know none of my constituents do. Even a lot of Democrats, I know you guys are probably even more tired than those of us on the right are with the extreme side of your party. We know that. We can see how exhausting it is. We see the comments from that extreme side in your social media pages and the things that they say to you. We see it. We all see it. Our constituents see it. We also think it's disgusting. But I'm really calling on you guys to do what's right here. Everybody on this call, you know, Mr. Senate President, Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, our former Attorney General. I'm not just here because I miss seeing your faces and I love spending my interim with you, but I really am here because I know that all of you know that this probably is the wrong choice. It's probably going to lead to court, and it's definitely going to disenfranchise people that at the end of the day, you might not love all of the things that we value or agree with us on even most things. But you need us. You need us because the extreme side of your party is really dragging you guys down. It's distracting you from accomplishing goals that would unify us, that would bring our state forward, that would get us out of debt, that would educate our kids better. So I think for you, it's time to be brave and stand up against the extreme side of your party and say, nah, we're not going to do this. It's morally corrupt. And it's time for us to just draw the line, be the parents in the room, and say no more. So that's my ask of all of you. And I look forward to seeing you in January.
Thank you, Delegate Arakan.
Okay. Next on our list is Sharia Yousefi. I'm sending you the panelist link now.
Good evening, Commissioners, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Sharia Yousefi, and I'm a resident of Bel Air, Maryland in Harford County. I come before you today as a concerned Marylander who values fairness and a representative government. I am strongly opposed to redistricting effort being advanced by the Moore administration and being considered by this commission. While it has been described as an effort to ensure fairness and represent the voice of the people, the practical effect is very clear. The process is designed to eliminate Maryland's only Republican-held congressional seat. That is not fairness. That is disenfranchisement. Nearly 25% of Maryland voters are registered Republicans, yet only one of Maryland's 8 congressional seats is represented by a Republican. Even removing that one single seat will remove and silence the voice of hundreds of thousands of Marylanders. This is not how a representative democracy is meant to work. Beyond being unfair, this process is unnecessary and potentially costly. Maryland faces a $1.4 billion budget shortfall and is consistently ranked among the most expensive states in the nation. This is the issue that deserves the full attention of our leaders, not an avoidable legal battle that a partisan map will most certainly trigger. Every dollar spent on litigation and consultants is a dollar taken away from taxpayers, public safety, infrastructure, and community needs. At a time when families are stretched and the state's fiscal outlook is very dire, launching a political map rewrite is simply fiscally irresponsible. At its core, this debate is about the voice of the people and the freedom of every Marylander to have fair representation in Congress. When maps are manipulated to benefit one political party, the foundation of representative government is attacked. Protecting the integrity of our districts protects the freedom of every voter. In closing, I urge this commission to reject any map that undermines balance and fairness. Maryland needs leadership focused on real challenges facing our families, not partisan maneuvering that silences the voice of thousands. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Michelle Whitaker. Please be sure to unmute.
Hello, to the Honorable Chair, Senator Alsobrooks, and the members of the Redistricting Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Michelle Whitaker. I'm the Executive Director for Ranked Choice Voting Maryland. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization focused on improving elections across Maryland. On behalf of our organization and the thousands of supporters across the state, we encourage the Commission and all Marylanders to reflect earnestly on what a vision for our democracy and the direction that we hope our democracy to go in as it relates to fair representation. Governor Moore has tasked this commission to provide recommendations to this General Assembly on our congressional maps and see how they are representative and fair. I think it's important to look at some of the data which has been mentioned by other speakers today. According to Maryland's demographic information, there are 6.1 million residents in the state. The State Board of Elections reports 4.3 million registered voters. A majority of our residents are women. And overall, a majority of residents are people of color. While we often view politics from a two-party lens, this ignores the growing number of unaffiliated, independent voters in the state, as well as third-party voters. There are over 1 million independent voters and third-party voters in Maryland that don't have the same representation in terms of when we talk about this with redistricting. This data tells just one part of the story of who we are as Marylanders from our urban to rural areas in the state. And a representative government is one where there is a seat at the table for all of these common communities. And my question to the commission is, do all of the voters have a seat at the table on this commission as we're examining maps? The work of the commission must be guided by the needs of our people. Any changes to our districts must promote a democracy that works for all people. Fair and representative districts are fundamental to a functioning democracy. They allow elected leaders to focus on ideas, not ideologies. It promotes policies that support people, not partisanship. Gerrymandering is a race to the bottom that hurts all voters and erodes trust in government and democracy. I urge the Commission to explore proposals to eliminate partisan and racial gerrymandering and expand representation and center the voice of voters. The Maryland General Assembly should take up proposals that encourage fair representation and protect voter rights. And I hope Maryland can show the rest of the country how we respond to gerrymandering with proven democracy solutions. Thank you.
Okay.
That was perfect timing.
Next on our list is Chris Burnett. Just sent you the panelist link. It says on my screen he declined to be a panelist. One sec while we find the next speaker. Okay. Anna Rennick, I'm sending you a panelist link now.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yep, you can go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide input today. I've lived in Maryland. Currently, I live in Anne Arundel County since '86 when I came to be a TERP and stayed. But I'm registered as and have been for many years as an unaffiliated voter. I recently retired under the threat of a RIF or relocation from my job as a senior policy analyst at USDA, but I'm proud to have been a civil servant protecting agriculture for 33 years. So I'm not here to advocate for a political ideology or position. I'm here to honor the true ideals about public service, civil discourse, and democracy that seem to have been lost by all branches and levels of government. I appreciate that ensuring Maryland's congressional delegation fairly represents its citizen is a vital and top priority for state leadership. But I have some questions about the need for this work now and how it will lead to maps that are defensible, fair, and representative. The US and Maryland constitutions require congressional representatives to equitably reflect population demographics based on the census. There have been additional statutes to clarify some of that, but it's remained focused primarily on demographic characteristics. However, Governor Moore has stated that he wants to assess, whether or not Marylanders want to see the redistricting happen at this time and if they feel the current maps are fair. Voting and civic engagement reflect public preferences, but fair representation must be tied to data and analysis. With all due respect, what we in the public want is not always the same as what public representation looks like. My 15-year-old daughter and I would say that since pickles and ketchup are vegetables and cocoa beans grow on trees, our diet is balanced. One person, one vote is critical cornerstone of our democracy, which is why an intentional database process is used to develop fair and representative maps. Absent that, what people want to think is fair does not necessarily lead to a truly representative districts. History up to and unfortunately including the present day has taught us that several times over, as indicated by the absolute need for the Voting Rights Act and litigation that results almost every time a state's maps are redrawn. So please, when you do this work, explain and post the data on your website. What population-related information has changed in Maryland and how was it collected in the 4 years since the map was drawn and litigated in 2022 to warrant mid-cycle redistricting? Process flexibility like mid-cycle redistricting is important. Things change. We plan, they change. But what is it based on? As a taxpayer, particularly since public resources are being spent on these efforts.
Our next speaker is Gary Hodge. Gary, you can now speak.
Gary, you're
Gary,
muted.
Gary, can you unmute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good to see all of you. My name's Gary Hodge. I'm a lifelong Maryland Democrat. I've devoted half a century to public service, mostly in Southern Maryland. No one would want to see a Democratic majority in Congress more than I. But I'm speaking today on a matter of principle that transcends party loyalty. It would be very easy for us to get swept up in a partisan gerrymandering arms race. But is it the right thing to do? Senator Ferguson has offered a wise, principled, and practical argument against it. This commission should heed his advice. Instead of getting down in the mud and wrestling with our political adversaries, let's beat them at the polls with better ideas for serving the people and solving the nation's problems. Attempting to disenfranchise 1/3 of Maryland's voters and deny them a seat in Congress is a vain attempt to capture the one remaining seat held by a Republican. Is not only a fool's errand, it's wrong. This shouldn't be the Maryland way. In a vein, it's more important this shouldn't be the Maryland way. In these troubled times for our democracy, it's more important than ever to set an example, remain true to our principles of representative government, and not be lured into a tawdry pursuit of base partisanship that has compromised the integrity and reputation of the Congress in the eyes of the American people and poisoned the civility of our politics. We can't control what the leaders of other states do, but we can control what we do. Let our adversaries do their worst and reveal themselves to the American people in doing so. Let them carry that mud-spattered banner while we take up the challenge of defeating them with the power of ideas and our commitment to improving the lives of our people. If America's political system is broken, let's dedicate ourselves to fixing it, not deal another blow to its credibility. We won't preserve our democratic ideals and principles by imitating the tactics of political adversaries in other states determined to extinguish the voices.
Next on our list is Thomas Kloboski. I'm sending you the panelist link now.
Good afternoon. I'm just coming onto this panel as myself as a registered voter in Maryland. I'm a registered Republican and I live in Baltimore City. As a result, I really have no representation in Annapolis or in Washington because all of the elected officials that represent the district I live in are Democrats, and they vote contrary to what I would believe in. I think it's a problem when a state is so gerrymandered, whether it's California or Florida or Texas or Maryland, that a portion of the population doesn't get a voice and doesn't really get a vote. I recognize that if I want my views represented, I probably have to move to West Virginia or Pennsylvania, or maybe to the Eastern Shore until maybe this group gets done with their work, at which point I would have no representation. Members of Congress and members of the legislature are supposed to represent the interests of their people. And when a state government keeps a large minority of the people from having a voice, the people either revolt or they leave. And California is a good example of a state where people have just gotten U-Hauls and left. And I'd hate to see that for Maryland. I've lived here my whole adult life. I grew up in Pennsylvania, but I've lived here my whole adult life. And over those years, Maryland's gotten more and more Democratic. And that's the voice of the majority, but the minority has something to say too. And I would just ask this commission to keep that in mind. I would hate to see this being a foregone conclusion, but my hope is that you'll consider this, and I'm against this redistricting plan, and I'm hoping that in 2030, when we're redistrict, it's more along the lines of taking into consideration letting all Marylanders have a voice rather than just one party. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Brandon Russell.
Good evening. I'm Brandon Russell, a resident of St. Mary's County, and speaking in my personal capacity this evening. This process is across the country a race to the bottom, and some call that a strategy for victory. But President Trump was unmistakably clear the Republican Party at all levels should use every lever of power to hold on to their thin margins. Just look at the facts. The 2024 election wasn't a mandate. Neither candidate cleared 50% of the votes. That's not a wave, it's a warning, and Republicans know it. Their mission now is not service, not representation, just survival. And it's already happened here in Maryland. In 2021, the 5 Republican county commissioners here in St. Mary's County installed an all-Republican redistricting board. Community members asked for balance, 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans, and 1 independent, but that simple request for fairness was dismissed. And the results were exactly what many feared. A redistricting commission led by a chair who tried to circumvent the rules, proposing maps that carved up the only majority-minority district in our county. The only reason those maps failed is because the community stood up and refused to be ignored. That fight should remind us that extreme gerrymandering is not some far-off national debate. It's happening right here. But Democrats do not get a pass. In a system dominated by two parties, people too often vote defensively, choosing who they fear less rather than who truly earns their trust. And when Democrats hesitate or avoid tough issues, they make that problem worse. Senator Ferguson has twice had a chance to strengthen voting rights in St. Mary's County, but twice he chose not to act. We still elect county commissioners through an outdated at-large system, a system originally built to drown voices outside the ruling base. That structure has helped Republicans maintain power here, and Democratic inaction has kept it in place. Local Republicans oppose district-based voting because the current method benefits them. When they defend it while relying on district-based elections for every state and federal office, the hypocrisy couldn't be clearer. And that's why Democrats must match the urgency of the threats Americans face. If Republicans across the country are aggressively rewriting rules to entrench their power, then Democrats must equally be determined. But in the opposite direction, expanding representation, strengthening voting rights, and protecting fair elections, not cautiously, not eventually, but boldly and now. Maryland's electorate is 52% Democratic, 24% Republican, and 23% unaffiliated. Real representation means real balance, and that includes this commission. But if the Democrats are who we have to rely on to protect our constitutional rights, given what we've seen from Republicans, then Democrats must act. Thank you.
Okay. Alfred Mendelson, I'm sending you a panelist link now. Please accept and unmute. Give Alfred just a few more seconds. Okay. You declined to promote a panelist. Okay. Kristen, do you have the next one?
Yes, I do. We promoted Michael Burke. He's on mute.
Michael, you're still muted.
Got it.
There.
Finding the button is sometimes the hardest part. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of my thoughts have already been said, so I'll try and summarize. Based on demographics, actual voter registration, this panel should come up with a new map that has 4 Democratic districts, 2 Republican districts, and 2 independent or unaffiliated districts. That is basic democratic rational thinking. You should be able to vote for someone who matches your party affiliation. Whether it's again by a digital system, we could be the first in the country and simply say, if you're a registered X, you are assigned randomly to District 1 through 8. And if you're an independent, you should be assigned to a district that is dedicated to independent candidates. Number 2, district lines, if we look at the current map, and I'm looking at it, shouldn't cross county lines. We have 26 jurisdictions, 8 districts. There should be one district for example, Baltimore City. Shouldn't have to be trying to figure out if you live in Baltimore City and having been an election judge, having people come to the wrong precinct because they physically don't know what district they live in. And that's absurd. If you live in Baltimore City, there should be a single district for the city, if you go with conventional thinking, unlike my previous thought. Baltimore County should be a single district. Shouldn't have Montgomery County having district lines come in from all the way again from Western Maryland to come into Montgomery County. So we should work very hard to ensure, if you're going to go with a conventional map against my original concept, keep the county jurisdictions whole so that if you live in any given county, you should be able to know, because you're in X county, that your county is District 1 through 8. You shouldn't, again, have to decide what side of an obscure road or other gerrymandered lines dividing up a county. So we need to stop the partisan warfare. We need to go with the actual intent of the original Constitution and work as.
Okay. Next up is Margaret Winters. Just sent you the panelist link. Please accept and unmute.
Hi there. My name is Margaret Winters. I am a resident of Baltimore City. I'm a healthcare provider. I'm the daughter of a teacher and a World War II veteran who served as a career naval intelligence officer. I'm not going to talk to the pros and cons of the legal and legislative hurdles that redistricting, yes or no, would present. It's a big job. And I want to take a minute to just thank you to the governor and the members of this commission and the support staff for putting on this ability for citizens to voice their opinions. It's totally incontrovertible that we do not have a fair map in the state of Maryland any more than the residents of Ohio or Missouri do. And if this opportunity to mid-cycle redistrict is taken to drive to a partisan outcome, then we will have failed ourselves, failed our state, failed our duty as citizens and patriots. If we take the opportunity to redistrict as an opportunity to provide full, fair, free representation for every citizen, according to the parameters that are laid out in the Constitution of Maryland, that's a very different kind of undertaking. This is, one of those situations in life, one of those challenges that we wouldn't pick, but it's here, it's right in front of us. And it's not driven by our choice, it's driven by circumstances around us, to which we really have a moral and patriotic duty to respond. The timing is not great. Nobody would have picked this moment, nobody would have picked these circumstances in which to entertain the possibility of redistricting. But here's the ultimate thing from my perspective. We are never able to control the ultimate outcome of any human situation. But our moral duty and our patriotic duty in the circumstances is to act as best we can according to our lights of what the right thing to do is. And to my way of thinking, the right thing is to pursue a fair map for Maryland citizens to vote and to make our ideas. I'm a registered Democrat, so clearly you know where I stand on what I see happening in the country. But I think we make the right choice to have fair representation for our citizens as a moral imperative. Let the chips fall where they may. Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Chuck Thompson.
One second before we start, Delegate Wilson was just put to attendee. Let me get him back on.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chuck Thompson. I live in Anne Arundel County. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to provide input into this process. Given the reporting on this redistricting, I'm trying to understand the objective of this commission. The website states to ensure our congressional maps are representative and fair. But what does this mean? Is the objective to try to make representative government more perfect? Or is it to try to entrench a political party? Before proceeding, I think it's important to take a step back to understand the purpose of government. The best place to look is our nation's founding documents, and the principles of our nation can be found in the Declaration of Independence. These words are well known, and they're worth repeating at this hearing. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And here's the key part: that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. There you have it. The purpose of government is to secure citizens' unalienable rights. And since all men are created equal, the unalienable rights of all citizens must be secured. To help secure these rights, representatives need to understand the specific interests, concerns, and needs of their local communities. In other words, shared economic, cultural, and geographic characteristics. Districts drawn around real communities rather than political advantage help citizens feel that their interests, not partisanship, drive the process. Political tribalism puts party over country and leads to treating citizens differently. Power overrides persuasion. A one-party state is not conducive to human flourishing. It is tyranny of the majority. District representation needs to be citizen-focused, not party-focused. So I ask you to please put the interests of Marylanders above the interests of party to ensure our congressional maps are representative and fair, and let the battle of ideas prevail. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Just 1 second. Delegate Wilson was experiencing some technical difficulties, so I'm going to try to get him back on the panel list. And Delegate Wilson, I just sent you a panelist link so you can accept that to come back to the panel. Awesome. All right.
And while we do that, I'm going to promote Lisa Comer to a panelist. Lisa, you'll need to accept the link.
Okay.
All right, we'll give her one more second.
Okay.
All right, looks like
the next one.
All right, I have Mary Clausen next. Mary, you'll just need to unmute.
Hello, I'm Mary Clausen. I am a resident of Anne Arundel County. Formerly, I was a federal employee for over 30 years, providing maps for our defense and intelligence community. I'd say maps is one of my passions. In early 2021, an announcement was made calling for a Maryland Citizens Redistricting Commission. They selected 9 members to redistrict Maryland with the 2020 data. I was fortunate enough to be one of those 9. I participated along with a total of 3. There were 3 Republicans, 3 independents, and 3 Democrats on this commission. We had the superb support of the State Planning Office, as well as a preeminent consultant for the United States in the dealing of redistricting. We constructed a map on one of the most gerrymandered states that exist. And by that, I don't mean politically gerrymandered. If you took pieces of a puzzle shaped like states of America, you wouldn't find one that's more curious than the state of Maryland, which starts almost in the Midwest at Ohio, stretches all the way to the ocean, is cut in half by a big body of water, and then has a carve out for a place called Delaware. So in order to redistrict this unusual geography, took a lot of thinking. We followed all of the rules in the state constitution about contingencies. We followed the rules about population, and we began putting the lines together. It seemed like an impossible task, but in fact, we did it. This is the map. You'll never see, you can't see it, that we published and was presented to the legislature before at the end of 2021. That map had only 5 counties that were split. In other words, almost all of the counties in Maryland and the city of Baltimore were contiguously in their own district. Now, there were combinations on the Eastern Shore, combinations from the Western Maryland to put those districts together. But the reasons there were splits were only 3 of the counties are bigger than a legislative district. They had to be split. And the others, we did it just to adjust them. So it can be done. That map, unfortunately, was summarily dismissed, not even really voted on. And I heard things like, oh, why do we care about county boundaries? Well, we do, and we work very hard to make that happen. I heard a lot of that tonight. One thing we didn't hear in over 4,000 testimonies was nobody came to us saying, please gerrymander Maryland. So I recommend do not redistrict. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Eric Rockel. Please accept the panelist link and unmute. Eric, you're muted.
You are still muted. There you go. You're good now.
Good afternoon. Thank you for this opportunity. I've heard Governor Moore on more than one occasion talk about a fair map, yet I look at this commission and see that 4 of the 5 members are affiliated with the Democratic Party, and that doesn't seem fair to me. Maryland is obviously a very gerrymandered state already. I've heard it been said that the 3rd congressional district is the most gerrymandered district in the entire United States. This is not something that we should be proud of. And this is not simply an exercise to outdo the efforts by Republicans in Texas, because Maryland, along with states like Illinois, Connecticut, Massachusetts, and New Jersey, are already highly gerrymandered. I would urge this commission, as one of its findings, to recommend that a nonpartisan redistricting commission be established in time for the next census, so that we can have a little more objective and not as partisan a process in 2030. I thank you for your time and have a good evening.
Our next speaker is Charles Preacher. Please unmute.
There we go. Thank you. My name is Charles Preacher Jr. I'm a resident of Bel Air, Maryland, proud Republican and supporter of Andy Harris. Let's be honest. This whole idea of redistricting is because of the Trump derangement syndrome. Everybody, including also Brooks, Van Hollen, Raskin, Johnny O, all stand up there and go against Trump at every move that he makes, no matter whether it's good for the United States or not. The Democrats in Maryland have a stranglehold in Maryland since I don't know when. I'm 70 years old, and for the last 40 years, it's been nothing but Democratic control, even though we've had Republican governors by chance. At this point, all we want is fair representation for Republicans, Independents, and Democrats. It shouldn't be based on color or race or who's got the most people. These lines should be drawn up fairly and squarely, and not because the midterm elections are coming. So I'm going to also point out that this state, I'm almost ready to retire, and I'll probably move to Delaware at this point. But what the Democrats did in Maryland during deregulation of the utilities has caused our entire cost of utilities to go up sky high. If we would have not deregulated, we would have been in better shape and people could afford their electric bills. Again, Obamacare was supposed to be affordable care. Well, it's not. That's why they have the subsidies that the Democrats are trying to extend. So if you're going to change the rules, at least do it fairly. And that's all we're asking for. So again, this panel is made up of all Democrats, but Mayor Morris. I think more Republicans and some independents should be on the panel. And again, it's obvious in the news releases by Governor Moore and the rest of that Democratic delegation that Trump derangement syndrome is so evident that they're not looking out for the best interest of the people in the United States. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Next up, we have Barbara Lafferty. Please accept the panelist link and unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for having me on. My name is Barbara Lafferty. I'm 54 years old. I live in Delmar, Maryland, which is in Wicomico County and in the 1st Congressional District. My testimony is this. Maryland's total population is approximately 6.1 million people. Of those 6.1 million people, there are 4,314,104 registered voters. 2.2 million of that, or 51.74% of that, are registered as Democrats. 1,030,000 plus, which is 23.88%, are registered as Republicans. 73,000 plus, or 1.69%, are registered as third party other. And 978,000 plus, or 22.69%, are registered as unaffiliated. In the House of Representatives, the U.S. House of Representatives, there are 8 members from Maryland. Of the 8 U.S. representatives in Maryland's congressional delegation, only 1 is a Republican. The current delegation, as of the 119th Congress, seated January 3rd, 2025, includes 7 Democrats and 1 Republican. The sole Republican representative is Andy Harris, who represents the 1st Congressional District, my district. 23.8% of 8 representatives is 2 representatives in order to have fair representation of all Maryland Republicans. And that does not even cover the 22.6% of unaffiliated voters or the 1.69% of third party or other voters. Keep in mind, my husband is a registered Democrat, and he does not always vote for Democrats. Instead of fair representation, I feel this gerrymandering is a blatant decision to try and silence the voice of 48.26% of all Maryland voters by attempting to take away the 1 seat that we have in the 119th Congress that represents me. That 1 seat represents me. I mean, James Otis Jr. once said, he said it best, there should be no taxation without representation. If you take away that 1 congressional seat from me, I have no voice. I would like to add that the constituent services.
Our next speaker is Pearl Seidemann. Please unmute.
Pearl Seidman, constituent of Howard County and grateful to be a Maryland resident. When I applied for a quite competitive legislative fellows program, I was asked about my biggest political concern, gerrymandering, I said. 8 years later, my response is more nuanced. In 2018, I was privileged to work for Congressman Emanuel Cleaver, a Democrat representing Kansas City, Missouri, and parts of 3 rural counties. Now his 11-term tenure is tenuous given a gerrymandered map passed by the Republican state legislature. Missouri went from A to an F according to Princeton's gerrymandering project. Missouri nice doesn't apply to politics. It's not right in Missouri, Texas, Utah, North Carolina, etc. It's not right or strategic in Maryland. As well noted, a judge struck down the 2021 legislative redistricting map in 2022. If we gerrymander so 8 of 8 districts favor Democrats, will a judge strike the map again? And should the judiciary be the last bastion of defense in the most basic of our democratic rights? Surely a legislatively drawn map will happen again, will be struck down again. This continues to fray public trust in our legislators. Contrary to what some previous panelists stated, Maryland currently gets an A in partisan fairness from Princeton's gerrymandering project. However, we, like Missouri, will plummet to an F. Is it just a report card grade or a repudiation of wise long-term strategy, adding oxygen to a burning fire? I understand the concept of fighting fire with fire. I also know that humans have a less than stellar record in divining the future. I close with 2 questions for this esteemed panel. Can you anticipate the outcomes in Maryland of fighting fire with fire? How can you ensure a controlled burn? Thank you.
Next on our list is Kimberly Lessman. Kimberly, you can go ahead. Kimberly, you're muted. There you
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. I don't really know a lot about politics. But looking at the map, it looks all over the place. I just think that y'all should have fair representation across the board just to alleviate all this bullshit. Maybe I should be more involved in politics, but seems like all of you on the board, judging by your facial gestures, are pretty uninterested in this meeting at all. So yeah, that's what I have to say. I think that a lot of people move out of counties that they don't feel represent their needs and wishes. And I'm not sure why the map is like all over the place and like the county lines are blurred all over the place. Like, why is Calvert County mixed in with St. Mary's and Charles County? It just doesn't make any sense. Like, just make it fair and even. Have equal representation across the board. Do you guys have any input? Hello?
I believe this is a listening session, so we're just trying to hear what everybody has to say, ma'am. We are listening. Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know how many people signed in to be on this Zoom call, but it doesn't sound like many people are very happy with going one way or the other way. So just make it fair across the board. Represent equal amounts for this new redistricting, or how about let's not waste the money and do it at all. Sounds like from my reports and my reading that Maryland is over budgeted. I'm not in politics, I don't know, but the one thing I know is if you're over budgeted, you have to pay it out at some point, and we're probably going to have to be responsible for that. So why are we wasting all the money to do things that we don't have the funds to do? I don't get it. That's it. You can take my time away. That's all I had to say.
Thank you. Our next guest is Shannon Wright. Shannon, please accept the link and unmute. And you'll need to unmute.
There we go. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes.
I'm going to try and make this real quick because as a pastor, we tend to be long-winded. So I'm going to say this to start with. The arguments at the beginning leaning towards redistricting were that if other states were doing it, we should do it too. Many of your listeners and viewers right now tonight are parents, and I'll be doggone, but I believe that one of the first lessons we all teach our children is what somebody else does doesn't mean you do it. If that child does something bad, you don't. So if we teach these lessons to our children in elementary school, I'm really not understanding why our elected officials, grown folk, can't seem to get the concept. That's number one. Number two, as a Black woman in Baltimore, who is a conservative Republican and a Christian, I will say that to anyone on this panel that votes for this redistricting, shame on you. Because what this thing does is it disenfranchises about 30%, if not, well, more if you include the independents. So that means that as a Black woman, I already feel ignored, overlooked, and disenfranchised. So you are willingly, and for those of you of color, to willingly disenfranchise other folks, shame on you. Now, the next thing, when you look at true power, it's a seat at all the tables. We got 8 seats, right? We got one that's kind of at the other table. If you get rid of that and you have let's play this out. You have a governor like Wes Moore who doesn't know when to keep his mouth shut, who wants to poke the bear and then put his hand out and beg for funding. You get rid of the one Republican that we have and then expect for DC to still send money? That's not going to happen. True leadership in this state needs to understand how politics is played and actually genuinely put the best interests of the folks in Maryland ahead of this partisan bull. Now, my name is Shannon Wright. I'm a Black woman, as I said, in Baltimore. I'm a former vice chair of the state GOP, former Central Committee chair in Baltimore, RNC delegate to several different conventions. And I'm telling you, what y'all doing ain't right. Fair does not mean fair based on your party affiliations. Senator Ferguson, I applaud you for standing up and saying you didn't think this was a good idea. I do. Senator Alsobrooks, shame on you as a Black woman raising Black children to do something that you know will disenfranchise Black voters. And Governor Moore, as a proud Black man, check yourself, bro.
Okay. Next on our list is Brigitta Mulliken. Just sent you the panelist invite.
Brigida? You'll need to accept the invite.
It said on my screen that she declined the invite, so we'll move on to the next speaker.
Okay. Then we're going to promote John Dumler as our next speaker. You'll need to unmute.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Good evening, Commissioners. I'm John Dumler. I'm a resident of St. Mary's County. And for the record, I'm a registered Republican voter in Maryland. Thinking about this issue, I've asked myself two questions. Do I think Maryland is in need of redistricting? And the answer to that is yes, I do think they are in need of redistricting. The second question is, do I want Maryland to be redistricted? And the answer to that is no, I don't. And you may wonder why I have opposite answers for both of these questions. To answer the first question, do I think Maryland is in need of redistricting? To which I answered yes. All I have to do is take a look at the statistics. Although they vary a little bit from what you've heard already today, the Democrats, registered Democrats in Maryland, are 52.6% of the electorate. They hold 88% of the seats of the congressional seats available. So they're represented at a 170% rate of their population. The Republicans in Maryland comprise 24% of the registered electorate. They have 12% of the congressional representatives. So they are represented at 1/2 of the rate that their percentage would allow for. Now, the whole idea of these districts is to provide fair and proportional representation in the House of Representatives. That's why I think that we are in need of redistricting. But now I don't think it's the time to do that because, first off, the motivation for this redistricting is quite clear. Governor Moore noted, quote, "The normal course of action is that states do it at the end of the decade. But I was also very clear that if other states are going through this process of determining whether they have fair maps and doing it mid-decade, then so will Maryland." So it's clear that the motivation is a reactionary measure to what's taking place in other locations. So the reason for this districting is really clear. It's to remove the sole remaining Republican district, District 1, from Maryland. How can that be done? The only way to do that is gerrymandering. And our Maryland political establishment cannot be trusted to do this fairly. It's not the
Are you finished?
Of this petition to send a message, to retaliate for perceived wrongs, or to react to events taking place in other states, nor to specifically oppose the federal government administration. Setting the congressional districts is meant to provide fair and proportional representation for Maryland and the House of Representatives. I thought that was my phone. I thought that was my timeout buzzer. So I do oppose at this time any redistricting because I just do not trust the leadership in Maryland to do it fairly. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have time to hear from one more member of the public.
I think we have time for one more, and that will be it.
Yep. Joni Palco, I just sent you the panelist invite. Please accept and unmute. Joni, you can go ahead.
Yes, hi, thank you. I just want to take the time to thank everybody for allowing us to comment on this very important issue. It sounds like a good 95% of us agree that we should not be redistricted at this time, and I'm one of those. I'm really hoping and praying that the the government listens to us and does not pursue this at this moment in time. But I do want to piggyback off of what everybody else has said, and hoping that this does not happen, as it does disenfranchise the many voices of the Republican Party members, to include myself, as like many others have said, we only have one representative as it stands. And I, for one, live in Carroll County, where I have no representation. So I'm hoping that things are left as they are for the moment being. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. And with that, we're going to turn it back over. I believe that our former Attorney General, Brian Frosch, is going to close us out this evening and finish things up for us. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think we heard a broad range of interesting, compelling testimony. Appreciate all the input from everyone who was a speaker. The panel will have several more listening sessions, and then it'll convene to make whatever recommendations we find appropriate to the governor and to the General Assembly. Thanks to all of the members of the commission and to Kristen and Andrew for your assistance. I think the next session is December 5th, if I'm correct.
November 18th, sir.
November 18th. I may not be at that one. But thanks all for your participation, and look forward to seeing you soon. That concludes the hearing this evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.